Let's just start with this quote because, wow, we're building a new species here. You know, that's not a line from some blockbuster sci-fi movie. That is a real quote from the founder of a real robotics company. It tells you everything you need to know about the sheer scale of the vision we're talking about today.
And this whole robot revolution, this massive shift in our world, is really being shaped by two very different, very powerful figures. So in this explainer, we're going to dig into the two big stories that are defining the future of automation. One is this grand, sweeping economic theory, and the other is the nuts and bolts engineering trying to make it a reality. So first, let's talk about the promise, the utopian side of things. Some people call it the solar punk dream. You know, this idea of a super advanced future with clean energy, smart robots, and just abundance for everyone. It's a future that's being championed by people who believe we are right on the edge of a massive leap forward.
And at the center of it, you've got our two main characters. On one side, you have Cathie Wood. She's the investor. Think of her as the architect, looking at the big picture, sketching out the grand design and convincing people to fund it. And on the other side, you have Brett Adcock, the builder. He's down in the workshop with the schematics and the tools, actually trying to build the thing. Two totally different roles, both absolutely essential.
Okay, so to really get Cathie Woods' perspective, you have to understand this one core idea. She argues that we've been looking at Tesla all wrong. It's not a car company. It's, in her words, the biggest AI project on Earth. The cars, they're just data-collecting robots, millions of them. And the real value, the real product, is the autonomous network they will one day create.
And the scale of what she's talking about is, well, it's just staggering. ARK Invest believes that this autonomous ride-hailing market could be worth between $8 and $12 trillion annually. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's not just a big new industry. That's bigger than the entire economy of most major countries. It's a number that, if it's even close to right, changes everything.
So, you might be asking, how is that even possible? Well, the core argument isn't about fancy tech. It's about raw economics. It's a simple cost collapse. ARK's models predict a robotaxi will cost just 35 cents per mile to operate. That's half the cost of owning your own car, and it just blows current ride-hailing services out of the water. When something becomes that much cheaper, disruption isn't just possible, it's pretty much inevitable.
And this quote from her really just ties it all together perfectly. It's not just about one breakthrough. It's about three massive technologies: robotics, battery tech, and AI, all hitting their stride at the exact same time and converging into something new. For Wood, that's the magic formula. All right, so let's switch gears to our builder. If Cathie Woods' vision is about completely changing how we get around, Brett Adcock's vision is about completely changing how we work. His goal is almost unbelievably ambitious: 10 billion humanoid robots on Earth, a world where physical labor is a choice, leading to a new age of abundance.
And, you know, when you see an image like this, you start to get it. It doesn't feel like a far-off dream. This isn't CGI, it's a real machine. Adcock isn't just tweeting ideas, he's building the hardware that makes you feel like the year 2050 might be showing up a little early. Okay, but for every one of these bright, shiny, solar punk visions, there is an equal and opposite reaction. There's the gritty, cyberpunk reality of doubt, skepticism, and public backlash. And believe me, both Wood and Adcock are facing a tidal wave of it from all corners of the internet.
Let's start with the pushback on Cathie Wood. This line from Bloomberg Opinion just cuts right to the bone. It's a polite way of saying that her huge predictions and financial models feel less like serious analysis and more like something you'd read in a sci-fi novel. Now, Brett Adcock gets a totally different kind of criticism. It's not about the money, it's about the tech. On places like the robotics subreddit, you see this comment over and over. People see these slick videos and they ask, is this real autonomy? Or are we just seeing the one successful take out of 100 failed attempts? It's a question about authenticity.
And going back to Wood's robotaxi dream, the critics hammer on the real-world problems. They argue her models just seem to gloss over the messy stuff. You know, laws, regulations, lawsuits, public fear. They basically assume a perfect, straight line to adoption, which, let's be honest, almost never happens with new tech.
The criticism against Wood also gets incredibly personal. People online point to analyses from big firms like Morningstar that call her fund a wealth destroyer. On forums, they mock her predictions. And she's often called a bag holder creator, which is a pretty harsh way of saying she convinces people to buy into a hype bubble right before it pops.
For Adcock, the debate is all about hype. The technical experts wonder if his robots are secretly being controlled by a person off-screen, teleoperated. Other online communities are just getting tired of his constant everything is about to change announcements. And he doesn't help himself by getting into public fights, accusing his competitors of faking their videos. It's a lot of drama. So what we've got are these two incredibly driven people, pushing for a similar future, but getting attacked in completely different ways. But here's where the whole story pivots and gets really, really interesting. Because they aren't just two separate forces. They're actually converging. And you can literally see how differently the internet sees them. Just look at this breakdown. For Cathie Wood, Twitter is an all-out war between her fans and her critics. For Brett Adcock, it's basically his personal megaphone. Reddit hates her financial models, but is just deeply skeptical of his tech demos. They exist in two completely separate online universes. But, and this is the absolute kicker, here is where those two universes collide. Cathie Woods' ARK Invest is a major investor in Brett Adcock's Figure AI. The investor with the grand story is bankrolling the builder with the grand machine. It's a perfect feedback loop. Her capital gives him the freedom to build, and his physical robots give her grand vision tangible proof.
So what do we make of all this? Well, it seems like the very thing that looks like chaos, this constant battle between the visionaries and the skeptics, is actually the engine that's making this future happen faster. The pressure from investors demands results, and the constant criticism from the public forces them to prove their tech is real.
And that leaves us with one final, really crucial question. The money from the investor and the code from the builder are now locked together. So the debate is kind of shifting. It's not really about if this automated future is coming anymore, it's about when. And maybe the most important question of all, when it finally gets here, who's going to own it?